Everyone, welcome you all. So in the today's video, let us try to understand how many ways we can write GraphQL queries. So based on the previous video, we have understood there are mainly three components in GraphQL. One is GraphQL query, the second one is mutation, and third one is subscription. So basically the GraphQL queries will be used to retrieve or fetch the data from the server. So there are many ways we can write our GraphQL queries. Now let us see how many ways we can create a graph queries, and also we will see how we can create a nested GraphQL queries, and sometimes we need to pass the arguments to the queries. So how we can pass the arguments to the queries, and also sometimes we should able to filter the data. So once your query is got executed, so we need to filter the response. So how many ways we can filter the response, and how many ways we can apply filters on the GraphQL. So these things we are going to discuss in the today's video. So for that I'm taking the help of an application here. So Hazara.io, so which is very popular application, and many people will use this for practicing GraphQL, and this is an application. And to access this, first of all you need to sign up to this particular website, and then you will able to you will get the login for that. And once you get a login, you will able to access all the GraphQL APIs. So if you want to create a login, so first of all you need to go to this website like this, and then you need to click on the login. And if you don't have a login, you need to first sign up. So once you click on the sign up, you will be creating that account, and with that account you need to log into the website. So as soon as you log into this website, this is a URL you need to use to access all GraphQL APIs. So if I look at this, there are three different windows are provided. One side you can see all the explorers. So these are the basically a query section, mutations and subscription. They are already provided in the form of UI. And in the middle window, we can write all our GraphQL queries. And in the third window, we can see the response from the GraphQL. So if you just want to explore the GraphQL, so you can just use this editor, and which is very user friendly, and all the options which are already available. Even if you are not able to write GraphQL queries, so you can simply automatically generate your GraphQL queries in this particular window. So first of all, let us start writing a simple GraphQL query. How we can write the GraphQL query we will see, and later I will show you the same queries how we can send in the Postman, and how we can validate the responses and everything. Okay, so before writing the GraphQL, the first and most important thing is we need to know the schema. So we have to know the schema, the structure of elements. So how they are exactly related, and what are the different fields are available in each and every type. So that we need to aware. So whatever the schema, whatever the queries, mutations, subscriptions are provided here. So for that there is a schema available. So this is actual schema for that GraphQL API. So here you can see there are three entities are there. So one is online users, and the other one is users, and the third one is to-dos. These are the three main entities, and everything is get connected. There is a relation between these three. So suppose if I look at online users, there is ID and last name. These two are called fields, and this another field called user, and this is again the user is what user types. So this user again contains three more fields. One is ID, name, and again to-dos. And again this to-dos contains a multiple fields. Again ID, title, user ID, is completed, is public, created at. So these are the fields which are belongs to to-dos. Again this to-dos is internally connected with the users. So these three entities are internally connected with the primary keys. You can say user, to-dos, and user. This is actually a schema of the GraphQL API. So if you know exactly what is the schema, what are the fields are available in each and every entity, we can easily write our GraphQL queries. Okay, so now based on this schema, let us try to write our own GraphQL queries, which is very easy. Even if you're not able to write the queries, you can easily generate GraphQL queries in this particular UI. Okay, so for that what we'll do is, first of all let us start writing basic queries, basic GraphQL queries. Okay, so how to write query? So you can just go here. So you can see query section. You can see all the entities are available here, online users. And if I just click on the checkbox, you can see all the what are the fields are available in this. And there is a to-dos, and this is also having so many fields. ID, is completed, is public, title, user, and so on. And come to the users, this is also having some more fields, ID, name, to-dos, and everything. So based on these entities, we will try to write our GraphQL for fetching the data from the server. So suppose if you just want to get all the to-dos list, okay, so simply what you can do is you can just select this, and what are the attributes you want, what are the fields you want to get from the to-dos according to the schema. If I look at the schema, in the to-dos we have multiple fields are available here: ID, title, user ID, is completed, is public, and created. If you want to fetch the data from these fields from the to-dos, you can simply select it like this: ID, title, user, is completed, and so on. And again, user is having subfields ID, name, to-dos. I'm just deselecting this for now. So what are the fields you want to fetch, you can just select them and it will automatically generated your query, GraphQL query. So to-dos inside this ID, title, is completed. So the GraphQL is automatically generated, and when you execute this, you will get the response in the JSON format. So this is a very simplest way to generate your GraphQL and execute it, and then you will get the response. Okay, suppose if you want to write our own GraphQL, you can easily write it. So for example, suppose I want to get some fields from the to-dos list. So simply you can write GraphQL. So you can just open starting and open curly braces, and here we need to represent in to-dos. So simply you can say to-dos, I can say to-dos, and this is a main entity. So in the to-dos, again curly braces start inside the to-dos, and what are all things we want to extract. Now I want to extract only titles from the to-dos. Simply you can say title like this. Now when I execute this, you will get the only title from all the to-dos. And apart from this title, there is one more field is there called user. So again, if you look at this user, and let me go to the schema directly. So here the to-dos list, right? In the to-dos list, we are captured the title. Now I want to get this user information. Again, user is having ID, name, and to-dos. So what I will do is here, along with the title, I want to get this user also. So for that, what you can do is you can simply write user, and inside the user, again, there are multiple fields are there: ID, name, and to-dos. So again, one more curly brace you can start, and inside this, I'm capturing the name of the user. So this is a simple way we can write our GraphQL query. Now we will able to fetch the data from the server. So now the to-dos list, each and every to-do title we captured, and along with the username we captured for every to-do list. So this is a way we can simply write our GraphQL. So there are two kinds of GraphQLs we can write. One is anonymous queries and another one is named query. Suppose here I have not put anything here, just I'm directly write GraphQL. So this is normally called as anonymous GraphQL query. So we can directly start with query. Suppose you can say I want only to-dos, you can simply say query. So here I have not put any name here, directly I put a query. So now I got this. So this is normally called as anonymous query because there is no name for that. So if you want to provide proper name to this query, you can just you can say get to-dos list. You can give some name like this, and then if I execute this, you will get the same kind of response. So this is basically called as named graph query, named graph query. So anonymous query and named query. So there are two kinds of queries which we can say. This name is optional. Even if you are not giving the name, no problem. So it will fetch the data from the server. So if I do not provide any name and directly if I execute this, that is anonymous query, which will also able to fetch the data. Okay, so these are the simple, very basic GraphQL queries. Sometimes we were able to write nested queries. Suppose if you want to extract the data from the different types, and if I again go back to the schema, I want to get the data from the multiple entities like online users, or I want to get the data from the users and to-dos, or I want to get some data from online users and to-dos. So we can write our nested GraphQL queries. So to write your nested GraphQL queries, we need to have a clear picture of the schema, how this schema is, how these entities are internally connected, what is the keys, on what basis they are internally connected. So we need to have more clarity on this. So then we will able to write our own nested GraphQL queries. Let me write one simple query. So my requirement here is I want to fetch the users and their to-dos. I want to fetch the users information. What is the users contains here is name and ID. Currently these are the two fields which we are having in the users. So along with this ID and name, I want to fetch their to-dos, because the to-do is also having inside the users, you can see to-dos. So this is another field, and if you go here, you will find all the to-dos list. So these two are internally connected with this to-dos and user. So I want to fetch all the users and their to-dos. So currently if I fetch only users data, I will not get the to-dos. If I want to get the to-dos, I want to specify this field. Along with this, I need to specify multiple fields, subfields. So now we need to write a nested GraphQL query. So how we can do this? I want to fetch all the users along with the to-dos. So for that, we need to start like this. Let me remove this query. And where we need to start, we need to first get all the users. Let me write a GraphQL now. So query and starting curly brace, ending curly brace. And here first we need to get a users information. So users, from the users, what do you want to get? In the users ID name, in the users I want to get a name. Users and their 2Ds I want to get. So users, only name I want to get from the users. And apart from this name, I want to also get all the to-dos of that particular user. So again, here we need to specify the to-dos. So again, in the to-dos, there are multiple fields are there. So according to the schema, if you look at here, so what I have written is in the query, I mentioned the users is an entity. In the users, I am getting the name along with the to-dos. So to-dos is what is another type, which contains again multiple fields, ID, title, user ID, and so on. So from the to-dos, I want to capture the title. So in the to-dos, again, curly braces, start and end. Inside the to-dos, just specify the whatever field you want to capture. So there is no commas, no full stop, no semicolons, nothing. You can simply write only field names in the curly braces. So this is how simply we can write our nested GraphQL. Now if I look at here, users is one entity, inside this to-dos is another entity. So when I execute this, it will give you user names along with their to-dos titles. In every to-do list, there are multiple fields are there again. So but I am capturing only title from the to-dos list. So this is how we can easily write our nested GraphQL. So let me show you one more type of query like this. Suppose I want to fetch online users. Let's say I have another entity called online users. I want to fetch online users data and their profile information. So that means what? For example, let's say this is online users. Inside the online users, let me show the key schema again. So here, this is my online users. So in the online users, I want to fetch all the online users. Means what? ID, last seen. These are the only two attributes are there. So I want to capture last seen from the online users. Along with, I want to get the users data. So from online users, I want to get last seen. Apart from this, I should also capture some name from the user. So online users, last seen, and I want to also capture the name from the users. Now I want to write a GraphQL query which is capture the data from these two entities. So from online users, first I want to capture the data. That means you can capture all the data from online users, or I can capture only one field, last-seen, and along with the users data. So now how we can write this? So you can write the queries like this. First of all, I want to capture the users information from online users. Now I'm starting writing the query. So inside this, first we need to specify the entity name, that is online underscore users, online underscore users. Again, inside this, what are the fields are there? Online users, ID, last seen, user. I want to get only last seen here. So I can say last underscore seen. That's a one field, individual field. And then I want to also get the user information, because here, if I look at the schema again, so from the online users, this user information I can capture. And again, this user is having multiple fields, ID, name, but I want to capture the name from the user. So here I'll specify the user, and inside the user, again, we have a name. So that we want to capture. See, these two entities I'm referring here. Online users is one entity, again, user is another entity. So when I execute this query, nested GraphQL query, and currently there are no online users are present in this database server. So that's the reason it is giving empty data. Okay. So this is how we can just simply write nested GraphQL queries. Okay. So now we have seen how we can write simple GraphQL queries and how we can write nested GraphQL queries. Now same queries we can also test in the Postman tool. So let me show you how we can execute these queries in the Postman tool. So let me open my Postman, and this is my Postman tool. And there are two different ways we can test our GraphQL in the Postman tool. So I will show you both the approaches, and whichever you are familiar with, you can try to use that approach. So the first approach is traditional approach. We can simply create a new collection. So let me just create a new collection first. So new collection I'm going to create so that I can store all the requests in this collection. So here I'm saying GraphQL YT1. Okay, so this is my first collection I've created, and now the new collection is got created. So inside this I'm going to create a new request for GraphQL. So simply add a request, and as I said, GraphQL allows only post type of request. So we can select the post here, and here we need to provide the URL. So in the GraphQL URL is always same, it will not keep changing. So queries we have to change. So how we can test this GraphQL here is simple. We need to place the URL here. So if I go back to the previous page, so this is a URL of the GraphQL API. Now I'm pasting here, and after that we need to provide the proper content type authentication. So these two fields are very important to access this API. So content type is application/JSON. Authorization is the bearer authentication token which is provided. So these two things we need to provide here. So we need to go to header section, and in the header section we need to provide that. So content type we need to add. So this is very important to access the API. So I say first content type. I can say content -type and application/JSON. Content type is what? Application/JSON. And then authorization. So in authorization we need to get the key from this latest key, whatever you have generated. You need to select the whole thing and go back and then specify the authorization key like this. So these two things are most important to access this particular API. Okay, and once you provided this, then what you need to do, we need to go to body section to write our GraphQL. So in the body section we have to select GraphQL option. In the GraphQL here, there are two windows you can see. One is query window, the other one is GraphQL variables window. So in the query window we have to write our GraphQL query, and if there are any parameters required we can pass them through GraphQL variables window. So in the bottom we can see the response. So whatever the query we have sent on the Hasura UI, so let me just copy the same query like this. So previously I have written one query, right? So let me get the data from the users name, ID, name, and to-dos along with the title. So this is the query I'm going to send. So now we got some response in this window. Now I want to send this query in the Postman tool. Now go back to the Postman and paste your query as it is here. This is your GraphQL query which will fetch the data. So once you provided everything, so currently there are no variables are required for this query. So I'm just sending this. Just click on the send. So once you click on the send, so currently this request is not successfully completed. So we got some other data. So let me cross check again. Have you properly provided this authorization properly or not? So in the header section we need to properly check. So content type, okay, application/JSON, and token we need to properly copy, guys. If you are not properly copied token, so this will not work. So let me write properly. Let me remove this token authorization, and now I copied correctly. So the spelling mistake is there here, AUTH. Okay, so this is a authorization. Okay, so once you save this, now let me run this once again. So still there is a problem. Let me cross check once again. So if there are any spaces in the authorization, you need to cross check again. So if there are any spaces, it won't work again. So post request, GraphQL. So here you can see here there are 2 times I've copied actually. So you can just remove this only one time. There is no slash, and save it once again and then send. Okay, now we can see you got the proper response in this. So this is the one approach in the Postman tool. So we can simply take a normal request and post type. We can select post HTTP type request, then provide the URL, and then provide the proper headers, content type authorization, and go to the body section. And inside this, you can paste your query, GraphQL query. You can write it here. And if there are any variables are required, we can define here. Later we will discuss about this. And once you provided your query here, just click on the send. Now we will get the response from this Graph API. So this is how we can simply test Graph API in the Postman. So this is one way we can do it. So there is another way, I'll show you that. So first let me save this request under YT1. This is my, okay, I say this is my fetch one. Okay, let me save this. So now this is a request which is saved under GraphQL YT1. So this is one approach. Now let me show you another approach. What you can do is, first of all, we need to go to workspace and click on the new button here. And this is a new option which is provided in the Postman. This is currently in the beta version. And this is especially designed for testing GraphQL APIs. So I'm clicking on this GraphQL request beta. Now this is more familiar and more useful for testing GraphQL APIs. So here we no need to select any post type of request or nothing. Simply we paste the URL directly here, just like this, and directly go to headers and provide the header information. So here content type. So content type is what? Here the value is application/JSON, and the second one is what? Authorization. So second parameter is authorization. So in the authorization, we have to paste your bearer token authentication key. So this token we have to capture from their website. Okay, so once it is specified, then directly, so we specified the URL and then we specified the required headers, right? So then where we can write the query, so we can just go to query section here, and inside the query section here you can see the table, right? So here there is a second section, you can see this is a table, and in the bottom window you can see the variables also, and in the top window here we can write our query. So let me write the query, GraphQL query. So let me just copy the same query, go back to the Postman, and then I'm just pasting over here. Okay, same thing, just provide the URL here and go to the headers part and specify the required parameters, and then go to the query section, and there are two boxes you can see here, and in the top box you can just specify the GraphQL query and then click on the query button. So once you have done it, then it will retrieve the data from the server. So this is more simpler than that one. So this is another way we can test GraphQL in Postman. Okay, so far we have seen how we can write simple GraphQL and nested GraphQL. So we'll see some more options, like how we can pass the arguments to the GraphQL queries and how we can make those arguments dynamic. Sometimes we can pass the dynamic arguments to the variables. We'll see that. So now again go back to the hasura.io website, and now here let us try to pass parameters to the GraphQL API. So how we can pass the parameters? So for example, I want to get all the to-dos for the users. Okay, let's say I'm just want to get one user, and for one user, or else you can just go to the to-dos, right? In the to-dos there are so many to-dos are there. So let me write graph query first, query. So inside this I want to get the, so from which I want to get the to-dos, I want to get the from the to-dos entity. So I can just write one query. So here this query is pointing toward to-dos. I can say to-dos. So inside the to-dos there are many options are there. So I want to capture all the to-dos. Every to-do we have some ID, we have a title. So from every to-do I want to capture ID, and I want to capture the name. So when I execute this, so again if I say name is there or not, name is not there. So we need to capture the title. So title is there. So from all the to-dos, I want to capture only ID and the title. So if I execute this graph query, so which will return ID titles of all the to-dos. There are so many to-dos are there. For every to-do, it captured ID and title. But my requirement is I just want to limit these to-dos. Suppose it is printed almost 50 to 100 to-dos. Now I want to limit them. So I want to limit them. So in that case, we need to pass some parameters. So normally in the RestAssured, we can, when REST APIs, while getting the data, whenever we send a GET request, so in the last parameter, we will specify. So how many records we want, right? So similarly here also we can filter it. So the to-dos, this particular query will return all the GraphQL, all the data from the server. Instead of retrieving all the to-dos, I just want to limit them. So simply to limit them, what you can do is here in the to-dos, we can specify the limit. So there is a keyword called limit and colon, and how many to-dos you want. I just want to display only 5 to-dos. I can say only 5 here. So this is how we can specify the parameter. We can pass the parameter arguments to the GraphQL query. So when I execute this, now we got only 5 to-dos. Okay. So this is how we can create. This is our GraphQL. So limit, comma. So this is a parameter which we have passed to this particular GraphQL query. So like this, we can also pass these arguments dynamically. So here we have just hard coded this value, right? So instead of that, we can also pass the parameter dynamically. But before that, we can see how we can pass multiple arguments. So here one argument I have passed, but if you want to pass multiple arguments, how it is possible? So let me show you how we can pass multiple arguments to the GraphQL query. So for example, I want to fetch one user. So here I have fetched all the to-dos, right? I limited for 5. So my requirement is I want to fetch one user and the 5 most recent to-dos. That means for every user, there are multiple to-dos are there. So for example, let's go to the schema again. There are multiple users here. So I want to capture one user from this entity. For that one user, there are so many to-dos are there. But I want to capture the recent 5 to-dos. For the particular user, I want to capture the recent 5 to-dos. Okay, that's my query. So here we need to pass multiple arguments. So first of all, we need to get only one user. There are so many users are there, but I want to get only one user. For that, we need to apply limit. One user we will get. And then from the to-dos, there are so many to-dos are there, but I want to get only 5 to-dos. The 2 recent to-dos I want to get. So that's my query. Okay. So first of all, let us capture the one user from this user's entity. Then we will think about later rest of the things. So let me remove this. How to get the single user? So I'm writing the graph query here inside this query. So what is an entity we have to focus here? Users. From the users entity, I want to get one user. So how to get it? You can say users, and here. So simply users. Users means again we have ID and name. So let me print ID and also name. Let me capture ID and name. So when you execute this GraphQL, you will get all the users which are available in the server, right? ID and name is fetched from the server. All the users you are getting, but I want to get only one user. So I can apply limit here. So users, simply say limit 1. So once you apply this limit 1, so now we got only one user. So this is one parameter, one argument I have passed. So now the next thing is what? For this user, I want to find top 5 to-dos. That means recent 5 to-dos. Okay, so how to get recent 5 to-dos, that we will think later. So first of all, let us capture the to-dos information of this particular user for one user. So where is that information is available in the to-dos? So along with ID and name, again, if you look at the schema, so there is a to-dos field is also there for users that we need to capture. So name to-dos. Okay, to-dos. In the to-dos, again, there are multiple fields are there. ID, title, user ID, and so on. So what I want to capture from the to-do is created at. So this is the field I want to capture because this field is representing when the to-do is got created. But the ultimate goal is what? From the last 5 to-dos I want to capture. But before that, first of all, let us capture all the to-dos which are created at all the to-dos. So in the to-dos, what I want to capture in the to-dos is in the to-dos, I'll specify I want to get in the to-dos, I want to get title. Let's say title I want to capture. Let's say title. Okay. So if I execute this GraphQL, so you got one user and there is no to-dos for this user. There are no to-dos for this user. If there are any to-dos, then it is displayed here. So title is not there. Title is empty. Okay. Let me just take one more field along with the title. I can take ID also. Okay, let me execute this. Yeah, now we got something here. So I got user ID, username. Again, to-dos is list is empty. So there are no to-dos for the particular user. So because I limited one, right? Okay, let me just increase this. Let me just make it as a 2. Now I got the 2 users. Yeah, so now I got the 2 users. First user don't have any to-dos, but the second user, there are some to-dos list. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to capture, there are 2 to-dos are there. So this is to-dos list, this is first to-do, this is second to-do of the particular user. Now I want to get the recent to-do. I want to get the recent one. So which one is recent in this? How we will know that? Based on the creation time. Based on the creation time, we need to filter this. Okay. So now we need to apply one more parameter for the to-dos. So what type of to-dos you want to get here is, we want to get the to-dos. We want to get the to-dos based on the creation date. So with the creation date, we need to first arrange it. So how to arrange the creation date? By using order by. So here we need to use something called order by class. So by using order by, we can arrange it. So basically the query is, let me just expand this. So here there are to-dos are there, and the bottom one is recent one always, right? The bottom to-do, whatever is created, this is a recent one. So that I want to capture. So first of all, I will limit the to-dos. Okay, suppose if you have many number of to-dos, it is not possible. Okay, let me just make limit as a 5 for now, so that we will get more number of users. Syntax errors found. Okay, so I think here we are not passing any parameters so far. Let me just execute. So now we got a multiple users, 5 users, totally 5 users we got. Every user is having ID, name, and to-dos. Even in the to-dos list, we have a title and so I think this user is having 2 to-dos, and this user is having there is no to-dos here, and mostly 2 to-dos are there for every user. Okay, so what I can do is I can pass 2 parameters. One is I want to limit it. Okay, limit I can say 1. So 1 to or 2 to-do list I want to get. So I can apply limit here. Let me remove from here. Here we need to pass. So this is one parameter. Limit 5. So limit 2. So 2 to-do list I want to get from every user, and though in those to-do list I want to filter it again. So based upon the order I want to print, which one is the latest? Always the last one is the latest. So we want to get this in ascending order. We have to get this in the descending order. So here we need to use something called order by, and in this we need to specify on which order we want to get. We have to take the help of this field created at. So this is a field which is there, and we need to print in descending order like this. Okay, so this is how we need to do. So to-dos order by, and then colon, and one more bracket, created at colon DESE, and again this we need to close, DESE close, comma, there is one more parameter called limit colon 5. So this is how we need to filter the data. So this is one parameter, this is order by parameter, this is a limiter. So let's try to execute this. So in the to-dos and order by, I think there should not be space anything. Order underscore by, so there is no space actually, there is underscore, order by, and colon, and created at DESE, descending order, and then comma, limit is 5 and close bracket, and again another this bracket is started. So title and then ID we capture. So I think this bracket is not enough, not needed. Okay, so let us try to execute. There is some error again, so let me just cross check what exactly it is. It's a syntax error. So let me cross check. First of all, prettify, and the query, inside the query we have a users, limit is 5, and then inside this ID, name, then to-dos, and order by, colon, and bracket, created at. I think there should be some underscore for created at. Yeah, so that is missing. Created at, descending order, and 2. So now let's try to execute this. So still there is a syntax error, so one more bracket is missing here. So now we can see we have printed 5 users totally. We have limited to 5 users, and in those, for every user we have printed to-dos list, because every user having some users were having only one to-do list, some users having two to-do lists, or some users having 5 to-do list. So here I have limited them. So I just printed only 2 to-dos for every user, and again those to-dos are printed in ascending order, so that I will get the recent to-dos of that particular user. Okay, so we have limited to 2, so we will get only 2, the 2 descending order. So last 2 to-dos we will get for that particular user. So like this, for 5 users we captured to-dos list of 2 to-dos list which is recently created. So this is a final query. So when you execute this, we will get the result like this. So we can pass multiple arguments. So here these are multiple arguments. This is one argument and this is another argument. So this is how we can also pass multiple arguments in GraphQL. So when I execute this, you can also execute this in the Postman tool. Let's go to Postman. Now instead of this, I'm just pasting this query and then execute. Okay, now we got the same kind of results. Okay, sometimes we should pass the parameters dynamically. So if I look at here, we have hard coded the parameters. So you can see 5. So this limit is 2. So these parameters, right? So we have hard coded them. But how we can pass the arguments to your queries dynamically? How we can pass these arguments dynamically sometimes? So that is possible by creating variables. So these parameters we can pass dynamically through the variables. We have to first create the variables and then we can pass the data to the query. So let me show you how we can do this. So let me write a simple query now. You can take a query, and what I want to do is, in the query I want to just use to-dos list again. So to-dos, and inside the to-dos I want to get ID of the to-do and then title of the to-do. So this is a GraphQL which I am executing. So now if I look at here, we got ID and title of every to-do list. So now what I want to do is, I want to limit them. So I want to limit these to-dos. How we have done earlier, here we can simply say limit, let's say 5. So now when I execute this, only 5 to-dos are displayed. Only 5 to-dos are displayed. So now what I want to do is, I want to pass this parameter dynamically. The limit I want to pass parameter dynamically. So I want to pass the arguments to this particular query dynamically through variables. So now what we need to do is, in the query level, we have to define the variable by using @. So by using $. So $limit, I'm taking one keyword, and here the type of the variable should be what? Integer type. So in the GraphQL, we have a specific data types that we need to specify. Int, colon, int, exclamatory mark. So this we need to specify. So $limit, colon, int, and exclamatory mark. So this we need to specify. What does it mean is, this is actually representing parameter. Okay, so just we have defined the variable, still we have not used it. So this variable we have to replace it here. Instead of 5, we can simply replace that variable name. Replace that value with the variable name, just like this. So in this particular query, what we are doing, we are passing the value into this variable, and that variable we are referring in this to do. Previously we have hard coded the data, but now we are passing this. Okay, but from where we have to pass this parameter? So if you are using the same UI, so there is one more window is available in the bottom, query variables. Here we need to define the variable value. So how to define this variable value is simply in the same JSON format, in the bracket. What is the variable name we have used here is limit. So that we need to keep in the double quotations. I say limit. And what is the limit you want to define? Let's say I want to print 10. So I can say 10 here. So this is how we need to pass the query variable. Now this value will be received in this variable called $limit. That is again substituted here, and accordingly the data will be limited to 10. Now when I execute this, so this will print the data. Exactly we will get only 10 records. So suppose I make it as a 5 now. Let's make it as a 5. Execute. So now we got only 5 to-dos list. So like this we can also pass the parameters dynamically to your GraphQL. So how we can achieve the same thing in the Postman tool? Let me show you. So copy the same GraphQL query, go to the Postman tool. Now let me remove the old one. So now I pasted our query here. Now we need to pass these parameters, from where we can pass the parameters from the variable. So there is one more box is available here. You can just look at here. So here we need to define the variable just like this, colon. So here, so what is the variable name is limit. So limit is a variable name, and how many records you want, how many to-dos list you want to display, just say 5 to-dos list I want to display. So this is a variable. So now this variable value we are passing here. So now execute this query. Now we got only 5 to-dos list. Okay, so this is how we can pass the parameters, arguments to the GraphQL dynamically. So through the variables it is possible. So once you created your variables, through variables we can pass the dynamically data to the GraphQL. Okay, so this is how we can pass. Right, so sometimes we can also filter the data. So far we have seen how to write simple GraphQL queries and nested GraphQL queries we have seen. And also we have seen how to pass the arguments to the GraphQL, how we can pass the dynamic arguments to the GraphQL. Finally, we will see how we can filter the queries with the where class. So suppose if you execute your GraphQL query, we will fetch some data, and once we get a data, if you want to filter it, that we can achieve by using a where class. So how we can do that? By using where class, we can filter the data. So let me show you quickly how we can filter the data. So first of all, let me write a simple query here. So my query is, I want to get the details of the to-dos list. So directly I'm writing query. So inside this query, I said to-dos. Okay, so inside the to-dos, what are all fields are available? Created, at, ID, is completed, is public. So I want to capture 3 things: when it is got created, or when it is got completed, and then whether it is publicly available or not. So it is a public task or private task, or public to do or private to do list. So I want to capture 3 fields. So from to dos, I'll capture title, and then I'll capture is completed. Then I will capture whether it is public or not. So 3 things I'm capturing. When I execute this, you will get currently unexpected variables in the variables limit. So currently I have not specified any limit here, so I can just remove this. So query to-dos title is public is completed. So this to-do is completed and close it. Okay. So here when I try to capture the to-dos, right, in the to-dos we have is completed. This is the option I have selected, public selected, title is also selected. 3 fields I have selected from the to-dos. So let us try to execute this once again. Okay, so it is saying unexpected variables in the variables values limit. So previously in the previous request we specify the parameters, right? We need to remove that one. Okay, let's execute. So now we got a 3 fields from the to-do list. For every field we have a is completed, is public, title. So totally so many number of to-dos list we captured by writing this GraphQL query. So now my requirement is, okay, so I want to filter this data. So I got all the data, right? I want to filter it. So what is my filter is, currently these to-dos list is, some of them are true and some of them are false. So some of them are, you can see is public is true. So some of the fields should be false somewhere. And you can look at this, most of the times most of them are true. Okay, now I want to filter it actually. So how we can apply the filter? Suppose I want to, is completed is the field, right? So that field, some field are having false, some fields are having true. Sometimes it may have true and sometimes it may have true. For some records the value of is completed is true, some records the value of is completed is false. Similarly for is public also, for some fields it is false, some fields it is true. Now based on that I want to filter. Okay, so how we can filter this? Simply we can specify the where condition. So in the to-dos, right, in the bracket we need to specify the condition. So what is the condition? The first condition, where colon, So what is the field I want to check? I want to print only the to-dos list fields where is public equal to true or is public equal to false. Okay, that's my where condition. So that field you can use it here. You can say is underscore public, is underscore public, and is underscore public, the value should be what? True. That's my expectation. So whatever the to-dos list having is public is equal to true, that I want to print. So here we need to put one condition in the where class. So the operator from the GraphQL is what? Underscore EQ. Underscore EQ is an operator, equal operator. That is used for comparison. So equal to true, equal to true. So that is my condition. So equal to true, and then close this curly brace and then close this bracket. So this is how we need to specify the condition. So you can say where colon, and here is public is my field, is public. So we need to start one more curly brace here. So where colon is public colon, that value is what? Equal to false. So this curly brace is got closed here, and the other curly brace is got closed here, and this bracket is end here. So finally this is a GraphQL query. Now let us try to execute and see what will happen. So this query is retrieve the data like every is public is what? True. You can see. So let us check the false. Is there any records with the false? So when I execute this, there are no records with the false. All are true only. So I can filter the data by passing the condition. So we can apply the condition. So based on the condition, we can filter the data like this. So like this, there are so many operators, so many conditions are there in the GraphQL. So accordingly, we can fetch the data in many ways. Okay. So the same query, if I want to execute in the Postman tool, just go to the Postman and paste the query here. Right. So let me copy this one and go to the Postman and then paste the query here. And there are no variables required. So let me remove the variables and then query it. So then we will get the response like this. So in the GraphQL, at the time of fetching the data through GraphQL, we can pass parameters, single parameter, multiple parameters, or single or multiple arguments. And we can also filter the data by applying the where condition. And we can limit the rows also. By using limit, we can limit the rows in the GraphQL. So the GraphQL is basically perform the operation for fetching the data or retrieving the data from the GraphQL server. Okay, and once you get a JSON response like this, just like as usual, how we will test the normal REST APIs by keeping the validation points. So status code and the body of the content, JSON body. So all these things we can put the validations in the Postman tool, and we can check the proper response is correctly given or not. So this is how we can create our own GraphQL. And even if you are not able to write this GraphQL, simply we can select the proper fields like this, and it will automatically generate the GraphQL, and we can directly copy that GraphQL in your Postman tool and then send the request. So for any type of GraphQL, that request URL is constant. This will not change. Okay, so if it is a REST, we need to keep changing the URL for different type of requests, different type of URLs we need to change. Endpoints will keep changing for different type of resources. But here the endpoint, that it is same always. The only thing is GraphQL we can write in our own way based on the schema. So if you notice here, whatever the data we are requesting from the server, the same data which is returning here, the same data we are getting the response, not extra data or not less. Exact data we are getting in the response. So this is the main beauty of the GraphQL. Okay, so this is how we can fetch the data or retrieve the data from the GraphQL server by writing GraphQL queries, and also showed you how we can execute these GraphQL queries in the Postman tool. Okay, in the next video we will see how we can execute mutations, and then we will see how we can do subscriptions and so on. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. We will see in the next video.